Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into part 2 of the MiniArt RSO with the PaK 40 build. In this episode we're going to get into washes, build up the sprocket wheels, assemble some additional parts, install the engine we've been working on, and make progress on the suspension by adding the road wheels. We'll also start working with the link and length tracks. They're better than rubber band style, but not quite as nice as full single link sets. Since I'm mostly building this one out of the box, I'll be sticking to the kit supplied tracks. First up, we're back to the engine. I pre-painted the exhaust pipes with a pinkish base. And now I'm layering in some rust and brown washes to add a bit of grime and character. I'm using a water-based brown paint wash here, just adding it selectively. Now, truth be told, you don't really see much of this once it's installed, just the cylinder heads poking out the side of the RSO. But it was fun and I enjoy this kind of work. At one point, I forgot to turn the camera on while painting the green parts, but I used Vallejo water-based acrylics for those. Right now I'm brushing on a wash made from Future, mixed with water and some dark brown Vallejo paint. This serves two purposes. First, it gives the metallics a protective acrylic coat. Second, it adds a bit of weathering. Why this combo? Because if I go in later with an oil-based wash, something with actual solvent, it can lift those delicate metallics unless they've been sealed. So this is a way to knock out two steps at once. Next, onto the sprocket wheels.
Sprockets. Best German Television presents Sprockets. Meet your host, Dieter.
All right, so looking at the sprocket situation, you can see that they have either CB1 or CA1, slightly different hubcaps. So I think I'm going to go with the fancier one. These are the sprockets, and here's something I found interesting. I have a couple of aftermarket sets meant for the Itinerary RSO, but their sprocket pitch and circumference just don't match this kit. So I'm sticking with the kit tracks. So K20. Clean up the sprockets is a little tricky because MiniArt placed the sprue attachment points right between the teeth. You've got to be careful not to damage those while trimming and sanding. That said, the parts themselves are very well keyed. I didn't run into any of the holes too small issues that I've had with other MiniArt kits. Assembly was smooth, even if I did flip one or two the wrong way. You've got 2 sprockets at the front and 2 at the back, which is kind of unique. Usually it's a sprocket up front and an idler at the rear. My guess, this setup helped with traction in deep mud. I got that wrong again, of course. Oy, I don't pay attention for some reason. Oh well. There we go. So this is the other set. Now what we're going to work on are these 4 small swing arm style parts which have the road wheels actually attached to them.
Check out that weld seam.
That's that one over there. Those long pipe-like parts are the base for the road wheel mounts. The RSO suspension is basic but rugged, just like the real thing. Let's see. The main beam mounts to the chassis and those smaller swing arm style parts attached to it to hold the wheels. Okay, let's get back to the engine now. Looking pretty sharp, if I do say so myself. These have also been pre-painted in various metallic tones to help them pop against the rest of the build. That little part I'm adding there, that's the distributor cap. I'm not going to bother wiring it, at least not for now. Maybe down the road.
This is part C30 and it's a bit thick to go through the holes. So I'm going to sand it back a bit. Maybe I need to drill out that hole. No, I don't want to lose that. I'll lose this. Maybe I need to run it.
The rod I'm installing next goes between the two fans. The fit was a little tricky, and I debated drilling out the hole in the fan versus thinning the rod itself. I decided not to mess with the fan detail, so I carefully sanded the rod down until it slid in clean. That's modeling for you. Every kit has a few bits you need to finesse. Now here's where you want to slow down and pay attention. There are 3 pins that slot into the fan, plus the central rod. This is also where the fan belt will glue on later. You'll notice I didn't bother painting this part ahead of time. That's okay. It's easy to brush paint in place. A little cleanup now that I understand how it all fits together. And I have to say the detail here is exquisite. I know some folks find MiniArt's detail level a bit overwhelming, but honestly, it's one of the things I love. Once it's together, it looks fantastic. Come on now, you can do it. You can do it! This is taking way too long. If I do this again, I might glue the part on before painting one of the fans. But then again, you sort of have to thread it through, don't you? Oh well. Now here's the fan belt. I had already painted and weathered it. Just lining it up and gluing it in. It's a bit of a mystery how everything connects, but we'll figure it out. Next up, engine installation. When test fitting it earlier, I noticed there are little pins on the frame meant to slot into the engine mount. Problem was, the fit was too tight, and as this area will never be seen from underneath, I decided to notch out a bit of a slot to make the installation easier. It worked great. I could just drop the engine into place instead of wrestling with that alignment. One pipe on the left-hand side, from the driver's point of view, was interfering with the exhaust pipes. So I snipped it, installed the engine, and then glued it back together. The fit overall is very precise, but as long as you're patient and don't force anything, it all comes together nicely. The exhaust pipes go into the sides of the chassis, though I mentioned in another video that the museum RSO at Munster has an exhaust mounted externally, but reviewing this footage, I do see that the MiniArt includes side-mounted pipes as well. I hadn't noticed that before. Those will need to be painted in a rust tone rather than body color. Let's move on. I've glued the engine in place and double-checked the alignment. Everything's sitting nicely. Next, the towing pintle. I'm installing it now, even though it probably could have waited. This is just part of my process, painting major subassemblies first and backfilling the detail later. I did notice the water-based primer, Vallejo, wasn't bonding well to the plastic. That's on me. I didn't sand the surface, and water-based paint like Vallejo or AK, just don't grip plastic the way lacquers do. So I'll come back later and reprime the exterior with Mr. Surfacer 1500 Mahogany. Not only does it bond better, it gives me a nice rusty brown base coat to build up from, especially useful for hairspray chipping techniques. Now that's sorted, back to the suspension. I glued on the long suspension part with the molded in leaf springs. There's a nice slot and tab system here. Just slide it in, align, and glue. Then a couple of bracing parts. Again, easy fit, no drama. If I were to build this again, I'd definitely construct more of the suspension before painting. But the first time through this kit, I like to break it down in steps so I understand how it all goes together. Sometimes I paint too early, sometimes I delay assembly, but hey, it all works out in the end. Now I'm painting the exhaust pipes on the firewall with a dark brown water-based acrylic. Using the same brown paint, I thin it quite a bit with water and give the black fans a very light wash to give it some aging. After that, I'm coming in with some of the famous light rust oil wash, adding flavor and depth to the fan housings. Here's a part I tried to hairspray chip. Aluminum base coat, hairspray layer, white top coat. I suspect this little piece is some sort of air filter or intake system. I'll do a little bit more research on the engine layout later. It didn't quite behave as planned, but the result actually mimics a galvanized look, which I'm not mad about. Let's paint the hose black, pretty sure it's rubber, and then glue the part in place. Time to talk about the suspension again. I've reprimed a lot of it with Mr. Surfacer Mahogany, and I'm using Woodland Scenics Tacky Glue, a latex-based glue that gives me some play. I do this so I can test fit the road wheels and suspension without committing. Why? Because if I want to place this RSO on uneven ground for a diorama, I need some flexibility in those wheels. Also, I prefer weathering the wheels while they're spinning on a toothpick. Makes airbrushing dirt and dust a lot more natural. Also, if they're fixed in place, overspray becomes an issue. Yes, the wheels sometimes flop off during all this handling, and it gets frustrating. But again, patience pays off. I did the same prep with the sprocket wheels. All of this is to get ready for working with the link and length tracks. Had I glued the suspension solidly from the start, the tracks would have been easier to align. But I chose to make everything removable, so that made it fiddly. No regrets though, it's just my method. Let's attach the muffler. I snapped that little side pipe while handling it, but that's an easy repair. I'll probably leave it off for now and glue it on at the very end. Otherwise, I'll just break it again. That's what I love about MiniArt kits. The detail teaches you something. That's what I love about MiniArt kits. The detail teaches you something. Unlike other brands that simplify things into one chunky part, MiniArt breaks it down in a way that reveals how the real vehicle went together. Here we go, starting to organize track parts. I scratch Roman numeral numbers onto the inside of the inner links with a scalpel so I wouldn't get them mixed up. Not much room in there for a marker, so a blade works best. Time to start cleanup, carefully. Keeping the suspension parts movable because of the latex glue made this whole process of putting these tracks together a lot harder. But, however, that's how I chose to roll, and in the end it worked out fine. I kept thinking about how can I make a jig that would allow me to have a more positive fit. Maybe if I was a 3D printing wizard, I could maybe come up with something. But as it is, I just had to kind of like glue little bits together, fit it around the sprockets, make sure I had everything in the right direction, which, you know, a couple of times I didn't. But my process is kind of like I'll put a little bit of glue on something and then I'll let it sit for a while where it is somewhat attached but still movable. And then I can wrap it around whatever I need to wrap it around. But like I say, if the wheels had been solidly glued in place, it would have been a lot easier than how I struggled with it. But it all went together in the end. I do believe there is a 3D set out there right now. I just saw on one of the websites. Breaking news! I have just purchased the initial RSO model kit from MiniArt, as well as the new mid-production RSO from MiniArt. And to top it all off, I actually bought a pair of these Panzerwerk single-link resin 3D printed tracks. So stay tuned for more breaking news. So as it goes with link and length track, you usually have a number of single links which are meant to rotate and wrap around the sprocket wheel and or idler wheels. And then you have other pieces that are perhaps a full length along the bottom, and then you have maybe 5 or 4 or however many tracks already stuck together as part of the molding process. So basically my idea here is to just glue everything together as per the instructions, put some glue on it, double check the fit and everything like that, and then just let everything sort of solidify so that I can handle it without things falling apart. It's not fun sometimes because the glue maybe doesn't stick and it breaks and you have to redo everything maybe 3 or 4 times, but eventually it all comes together. I don't know, does this fit? Is there enough on here? Oh, man. Okay, my friends, we're going to wrap this episode up here, and I hope you were able to get some insights into how to build this kit from my mistakes. Ha ha ha. So all that's left for me to say is, in the meantime and in between time, that is another edition of Jet Scale Models. You all come back now. You hear?